Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hello, Trevor. How are you?
I'm great. Kathy, how are you?
I am doing okay. Doing
Hanging in
okay.
there
We're
like we
hanging
all
in
are.
there. We're hanging in. How
Absolutely.
it's been a while. It's been a little bit since we've been on live. So we have to get back into this routine and trying to figure everything out. It
I,
took me
I
like
think
three
so.
tries.
Well, it's a weird time of year for a lot of people. Summer's over, yeah, autumn, and in the great state of Idaho, that just means hunting season. So, got to spend some time out in the woods, reconnecting with nature, getting away from the electronics for a little while. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I was like full on Grizzly Adams there for a while. I had a big old, it was getting all bushy and it was great. I don't think you have that problem.
No. Although I will say my son, he's 18. He's had a full beard since he was 14. And
That's
he
impressive.
grows it like literally, like it's like out there
He's
like
that
this.
kind of guy that like when he sneezes, it just just comes out.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, some people are like that. They can just grow facial hair like
Oh,
yeah, it's
I
crazy.
don't know. Like I've never seen that, and it's funny. The school that he goes to, or the school that he went to actually, um it's it's an all Arabic school. Like there
Mhm.
was a lot of Arabic, and he's not Arabic, right? But all of his friends are, and they used to laugh at him and be like, "How do you have more hair than we do?"
Right?
Like,
Yeah,
this is
because in their culture they're big on beards.
oh,
That's like a big thing of manhood. You have your beard.
yeah, and a lot of his friends could not grow like that full beard,
Mhm.
not at the young age that Dre was, and here he was like, 14, 15, just man beard coming out. It was funny. And his friends used to be like, "How do you do this? Like we're supposed to be the ones."
That's so funny. That's awesome. That
Yeah.
reminds me of it reminds me of a joke I heard once. It says, I hate it when I sincerely compliment somebody's mustache and then she slaps me.
So
I just
true.
got
So true. I love that. That's hilarious. So true. Right? And she slaps me. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So,
So we're talking about sleep paralysis today. So, I
that's
got this idea because we were talking about, what do we want to talk about? And I got this idea just from I was actually with, speaking, bringing up my son. He had mentioned, we were just talking about it in the car one day. And I don't remember. It was, something probably popped up on Facebook or whatever. And I mentioned it or whatever. And he said, "Yeah, I had that happen." And I said, "Oh, well, like what? Like what?" And he goes, "Like, I couldn't move." And he goes, "But you hallucinate." And he goes, I Googled it right away. I wanted to see what
mhm.
happened to me. So he actually was able to figure it out on his own,
Good for him.
thankfully.
Mhm.
And he wasn't overly scared. He said at the time he was a little bit taken back because he did see, I wouldn't say he saw like demon-like looking things, but he did see, something weird that was,
Yeah.
like dark shapes in his room.
Right.
But he said that he was able to move one finger. And as soon as he was able to move that finger, he tried moving a finger. That's when he was like it snapped him out of it.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice.
So and so we were talking about this, and I thought this would be a really interesting subject because as paranormal investigators, we actually get quite often people that claim to see demons, while they're sleeping or that they can't move and that they're frozen. And as investigators, and the responsible thing to do is explain about sleep paralysis,
Correct.
right? Rather
Mhm.
than, encourage
Right. Yeah.
the demonic part of it that
Yeah.
people
Uh,
tend
uh,
to think that it
we
is,
shouldn't
right?
be fanning those flames of fear by any mean. And
Right.
yeah, because it's a real thing, and it is so much more common than people realize.
Yeah.
And we I personally have taken many calls from clients
Mhm.
that talk about that they woke up and there was somebody holding them down in their sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, that there was a dark shadow person standing over them, and they couldn't move, they couldn't breathe, something was
Mhm.
choking them. I've even heard reports of things like they thought they were being sexually assaulted, and there are so many different things that you can experience during sleep paralysis that it's really scary.
Right. Yeah.
Happens. It's really scary when it happens. And unfortunately, there's no real clear reason. They haven't been able to figure out why it happens, but they
Yeah.
have been able to link certain things to it. So, we can talk a little bit about that. But, if anybody out there has experienced that before, do you understand that it's 99% unlikely it's paranormal. So
Right.
it's
That's exactly it. So let's kind of describe what it is. So, for people that are like, "Ooh, what are they talking about?" Because some people have never heard of it.
Mhm.
And so basically what it is this feeling where you think that you're awake, or that you feel that you are awake, or that you might even possibly be in the beginning stages of waking up,
Yeah.
and you feel like you're literally paralyzed, where you can't
Right.
move, or you feel
Mhm.
restricted or restrained to the bed. For some people, they do hallucinate, where they may see a creature, or some demonic looking thing. I think I actually even heard that, some people see witches, or the hag, the old hag, that sort of energy coming through, where it's on your chest, because you do feel like you might have trouble breathing, or that your chest
Mhm.
is super tight.
Right.
um you might see things in the room. You might see, and this is, I was, it was interesting, because I was talking to my daughter about this just before the show, about an hour before the show, and she said, I had that a couple of times, and she goes, I kept thinking somebody was in the house.
Mhm. Yep.
And
That's common
so
too.
she thought it was an intruder in the house, and that's exactly, that's one of the symptoms of it, is that you may see or hear somebody walking around, or where you believe that there's an intruder, but
Yes.
again, you're paralyzed and you can't quite move. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So basically what we're talking about is stages of sleep. And there's two different stages that people will can have sleep paralysis. It's
Right.
it's when you're going into your initial REM phase, that rapid eye movement phase, and that's when you have all that really lucid dreaming, is during that REM phase. And then the other one is when you're coming out of that REM phase. So going
Mhm.
in and coming out, those are two opportunities that you could have sleep paralysis. And basically, what happens, I mean, you think of your brain like a computer. Your brain and your body is basically one big machine, and
Yeah.
there's basically, when you turn your computer on, there's a startup program. It initiates this program, and initiates this program, and initiates this program, and it goes until it's fully operational. Our
Right.
brains are no different. So there is a way, there's different settings, things that happen when we wake up. Now, for some reason, occasionally that startup system gets screwed up,
Yeah.
and our eyes, we will open our eyes, and all of a sudden our body is kind of waking up, but our brain isn't, or vice versa, I guess. The brain is kind of like, hey, oh, we're
Right.
awake now, but your body hasn't fired up yet. You can't move. The reason for that is if we'll say that you're having a lucid dream, or you're having I'm sorry, not maybe a lucid, but you're having a dream. Maybe you're having a nightmare, and
Yeah.
somebody's chasing you, and you're running and you're jumping. Well, you don't want to really act that out in the real. So your brain automatically disconnects your body from what it normally
Right.
does. That's the paralysis part. And so your brain just hasn't reinitiated the connection with the body to get moving again. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
So
You're
so
actually explaining it really well, I think. Yeah.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
So the yeah, and so but all those images and things that you're seeing, uh your brain, it's really hard to describe, because your brain operates on a whole nother level of speed than we realize. And so
Mhm.
um a lot of this stuff will, when you wake up and you can't initially move, you're feeling like you have all this pressure on you, your brain is trying to come up with reasons why that's happening. To start 90% of people who have sleep paralysis experience some form of hallucination.
Yeah.
And usually it's something that is going to cause fear and anxiety because they're feeling fear and anxiety because they can't move.
Right.
There's a very small percentage of people who actually experience something pleasant, though. They actually have this like kind of euphoric hallucination or whatever, it's all, they rainbows and roses, I don't know. But but then that fear and that anxiety, that will start inducing that I can't breathe feeling, but like you said, your son was able to snap himself out of it. And then once people start once you can get educated about what's going on and you can realize what's going on, you can start snapping yourself out of it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times, if you think of sleep paralysis sort of like a haunting in that extent, is once you can make a logical sense of a lot of things, you can usually eliminate a lot of the things that are actually happening, right?
Yep.
Rather than getting into a state of fear and just focusing in on what the could be or, whatever it is, right? Like when you're in that state of that fear and like you said, anxiety, once you can start eliminating all of the things that it probably is not.
Exactly.
And getting into the state of, logic and going, okay, I know what this is. I know that, this is happening at this current moment, et cetera, and talking your way through it. Right.
Exactly.
Usually,
So, and that's what your son discovered. Once he figured out that he could move that finger, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I can do this, and that's basically it's kind of like a lot of willpower. You just you can will yourself out of it.
Yeah.
If somebody, these episodes last on average about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
They can last up to 20 minutes.
Wow.
There's not a real good, I was kind of looking around to see if there was much as far as like studies go, but it is so sporadic that can't just, and they can't induce it. So it's kind of like there hasn't been like a clinical setting in which they were able to observe it in a controlled setting type thing, in a controlled manner. So, but reports, based off of reports, it averages about 6 minutes. And anything you can snap yourself out of it if you're aware of what's going on, or if you have a partner in bed with you and they roll over and they bump your elbow or something, that usually will snap you out of it, or a loud sound or something like that. So just understand that, one, they're not dangerous. Two, everything that you're seeing and hearing is a hallucination. It's not real. So it's scary. You are certainly experiencing something. It's just not paranormal. So
a few years back, so I would say, geez, when I first started investigating, it was one of our first cases, I would say. We actually ended up having a case where, the client originally started with sleep paralysis. And it was really interesting. And I'm getting feedback. Sorry. They woke themselves up and they did do a little bit of research on it and everything, but they were also having other issues within their house. And it turned out to be an amazing investigation, to be honest. Like it was, but the two don't correlate. Like just because he was having the sleep paralysis, it wasn't, but the anxiety from having what was going on within the home did bring about, or possibly could have brought about, the sleep paralysis, because there was a lot of anxiety that he and his wife and their youngest daughter were experiencing by being in the house itself, because of the paranormal activity that was going on at the time.
Because sleep paralysis, I mean, it's been linked to sleep disorders.
And he did have apnea. He was a very large man, and diabetic, and have missed a leg. It was missing a leg, and like there was he had a lot of health issues for sure. And so, it's not getting the best sleep, obviously, because of the health issues that he had and everything. So
sleep apnea is one of the things that they believe it seems to be very common in people who have reported sleep apnea. The other one is narcolepsy. Is
What
very
is narcolepsy?
so
That, that,
narcolepsy is
that sounds like, when you try to have.
narcolepsy is when you kind of fall asleep at really inappropriate times, like abnormal times, like you and I are narcolepsy, just like that. So it's it's a fascinating one. I mean, I in my younger years as a paramedic in Oregon, I had a really well, say really old. I had an older partner. He'd been around forever, and was on the verge of retirement. And he was kind of a bigger guy, and we'd be driving in the ambulance. Fortunately, I'd be driving. He'd sit in the passenger seat, and we'd be talking, and all of a sudden he's just out, just
Yeah, yeah.
snoring, just like that. That's a form of narcolepsy. And then I think it affects it affects your circadian rhythm. Other disorders too will, like PTSD, anxiety, those type of sleep of mental health issues
Yeah.
are also believed to be part of this as well. People who don't get regular sleep. So people like me, I'm a fireman, and I don't really have a sleep schedule. I just kind of, I'm up, I'm down, I'm whatever.
Right.
Now I've never experienced sleep paralysis that I know of. But that is one of those things that we kind of look at, or that they are looking at as far as some of the causes.
Have you ever had it?
I don't think so. I've had some pretty weird dreams, but
Yeah.
I don't recall ever having sleep paralysis. So
I have never had sleep paralysis either, but it was interesting of what my daughter said this interesting thing when I was talking to her, and it was something that I had experienced, and I was like, that is wild that that this happened, but it was during one of her sleep episodes or sleep paralysis. She said she had two of like she knows that she's had at least two sleep paralysis episodes.
mhm.
And I had this happen. So a few years ago, my son was just little and, or, younger. And I had a really bad fever, really high fever. I think I had like, bronchitis or pneumonia or one of those things, and I was really sick. And I remember getting up and I was on my way to the bathroom, and I swear to God, I could hear people talking. Like, not in my house, like, these weren't people that live in my home.
Mhm.
It wasn't like somebody had broken in or anything. It was I could literally hear them in my head, like, and they were having a conversation. This is what I heard. And but, the part of me knew also too, okay, I'm very feverish. So, I'm not placing a whole lot of, you know, anything into this. I'm aware
Right.
of the fact that I've got a massively high fever. And but I heard, I literally could hear this conversation going on. And then all of a sudden I heard, I think she knows we're talking. I think she knows we're here. And I was like, and so again, I kind of dismissed it and went back to bed and whatever, right? But I mean, it was something that, it was strong enough for me to continue remembering for sure.
Mhm.
But my daughter said that while she was going through the sleep paralysis, she could hear like a conversation. It's like an ethereal conversation, pretty much. That's what I heard. And all of a sudden, somebody saying, I think she knows we're here.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that weird? So,
Mhm.
you kind of go, what the hell is that about? Like, because I don't have an explanation. I mean, for me, I just took it as, okay, this is a fever. You know what I mean? And but to have that acknowledgement of, I think she knows we're here. It was almost like a shock, to
Yeah.
like that other whatever it was or nothing
Mhm.
or whatever, you know what I mean? And oh, like she's listening. Oh, she knows we're here. Yeah,
Right.
and and
Interesting.
I never really got over that. Like that kind of, blew my mind, right? Like at the time I was too sick to really, care too much about it. I was just like, okay, we'll deal with this tomorrow. Kind of. But I never forgot about it. And I found it wild that my daughter would say that she would have that same thing happen.
Was it in the same house?
No.
Different
No.
places.
Yeah, different
Interesting.
places. So, yeah, and then that's where you kind of go, okay, well, what in the heck is that? Is that,
Mhm.
your brain, just is this a normal charge that's just happening within your brain or, during that time or I mean, or is there something else? Was it,
In that case,
what went wrong?
that's just it. Because what that certainly wasn't sleep paralysis, right?
No,
So,
and I was
but,
up and I
but
was
your
walking as
mind
much as I
is
could
in
walk, I was walking.
some other place. Yeah. So it's kind of yeah, that one's kind of strange, where it's, and I've actually thought, I've been, and this could lead to an entirely whole other show, the theories of Trevor. But wondering, where your brain is as far as like the brain waves, what they're doing in those situations. I think it would be really interesting to study like mediums and stuff when they're actually in tune with the spirit
Mm,
side and where their brain waves are in that
mhm,
setting. And then maybe, something to do with that as far as, the frequency that you're operating on. And maybe we're slipping into that frequency somehow accidentally, or I
mhm.
don't know. So it's kind of there. I've been reading a lot of stuff about some of these things like frequencies and brain waves and just trying
Yeah.
to figure things out from a scientific perspective because it's kind of fascinating. But there's just a lot of theory, a lot of conjecture. Nobody really knows anything. It's kind of
Well,
fun.
that's just it, right? And I think that I mean, there's no facts. I mean, that's
Nope.
the thing. I mean, but the only fact that we might be able to come up with is like we said, earlier, is that, 99% of sleep paralysis is not demonic. It's not an actual
Nope.
demon sitting on your chest
No.
and sucking your life out of your, you know what I mean?
But it's possible it can be brought on by hauntings, right? Because if you're not sleeping
Absolutely.
and you're scared and you're
Yeah.
all that stuff, it could certainly lead to episodes of sleep paralysis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it is a verifiable and scientific medical thing. So it's not a what when that is happening to you, that is just your body reacting to
Hmm.
what the sleep deprivation or the anxiety or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of cool stuff. It's in it, and again, if it's something that's happening to you, you're not alone. A lot of people have this experience.
Hmm.
There's a ton of information online about it.
Yeah.
There's videos on YouTube about it. You can do a lot of research and start learning how to get yourself out of it when it's happening. So
I think, the hard part is it's like with everything on, YouTube or, on the internet. You just got to be discriminatory about what it is that you watch. I mean,
sure.
if you're going to search demon and sleep paralysis, chances are, there's going to be somebody out there who's going to try and scare the living crap out of you.
Yep, that's right. That's why I went to who was it? It was the I went to I went and got some information off sleepfoundation.org, is
Mm,
where I got a lot of the information about sleep paralysis. So people who actually study sleep disorders for a living. And there's a whole section on just, I think they call it parasomnia disorders.
oh,
Just
wow.
abnormal sleep disorders. I mean, and they talk anything from about
Yeah.
nightmares to night
Yeah.
terrors to
Yeah.
sleepwalking, all these different things. And there's a lot of them. And I was reading about a lot of them. I could say, man, there's a lot of people that talk about experiences that they have, like, all of a sudden my wife, is in bed, and all of a sudden she just starts twitching and jerking, like she's possessed or something. Man, that's actually a
Yeah.
sleep disorder.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
real thing. So,
I was just thinking in my head, I was like, like we're lucky enough in our generation right now, in the age that we are, that we do have the internet to take a look at,
mhm.
or that we have, even if we have to be discriminatory about where we're looking,
Yes,
and
very much
not,
so.
you know, Google stupid things,
Yeah.
right? But we are lucky. And when you think back, a couple hundred years, longer even,
Oh
to
yeah.
where there was nobody to go to except maybe, what was deemed, the witch of the village, or the white healer or the shaman or whatever it
Yeah.
was that was around, and they're basically just creating stories. And so of course we're
Yeah.
gonna be stuck in this place where we're coming right out of the pages of like Hansel and Gretel and whatever other basically
Oh yeah.
story tales and fables, right? Because there is no information on
You
it.
talk about,
And
yeah.
so, yeah,
It's crazy. From a medical perspective, I think about people who had seizures, 300 years ago,
yeah,
and it was like, oh my gosh, they're possessed. It's a demon, and doing all these things to these people, that's like, oh, it's just a seizure disorder, but they didn't know any better, right?
yeah,
Because when you think about, we lived through these different ages. There was, what the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Steel Age, the
medieval.
Industrial Revolution, da da da. Well, this is very much the information age that we
Yeah,
live in, and there's so much of, and like you said, there's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So, just be picky
definitely need to
where you
be
look.
careful for
Yeah,
sure. For
because there's a lot of
sure.
weird stuff out there. So, because
Yeah.
I'm sure if I would imagine I could probably find information that would suggest that yes, you have a demon and you are possessed, and
Oh,
you know
100%, right?
for $5,000 we can come and take care of it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that even though the information is there, we still have, or maybe we have more of. It's hard to say, right? Maybe
mhm,
there's probably just a more quantity of people that are willing to,
right.
get rid of your sleep demons for X amount of dollars, and, doing the, ooga booga dance and shaking a few troll dolls or something like that, right? Like there's always going to be somebody that's willing to you know take your money
Yeah.
for
And
for
and
this.
and and ironically, they can't do well. Not even ironically, they can't do anything about it. There's nothing they
Hmm,
can do about it. Even if they came in and like you really had a haunting,
yeah.
and they were able to cleanse your house, okay, no more spirits, you still may have sleep paralysis. So, it's just one of those things. So,
Well, and that's the thing, is you can't predict when it's going to happen,
nope,
or even if it's going to happen again. You might have one
nope,
episode and that's the end of it.
you're
Funny enough,
super
like when my
sporadic.
son had it happen, he was still quite young. He was about
Yeah.
10 to 11 years old. But again, at the time, he's a brilliant kid, so I was, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't surprise me that he figured it out on his own and that he did his own research on it afterwards, right?
Hmm.
But we have adults that are more willing to believe that. Yeah, here's the thing. I wonder if to some degree, and and there's probably going to be somebody out there that's like, I can't believe you would say that. But I'm going to go with it. Right? Because we've dealt with people who are haunted.
Hmm.
And they seem to like, no, I mean, you can find legit the cause of whatever their haunting is. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that hauntings aren't real or that they don't happen. Of course they do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be paranormal investigators, right? It
Right.
wouldn't have,
Exactly.
we would be house fixers, or
Yep.
let us see if your open window is closing the door upstairs. Like, I mean, it would be a whole different name, right?
Hmm.
So, but when you think about it, we have people that are permanently haunted, it seems like, in their head, or they want to be haunted because of the attention.
Yeah.
Like that's the bottom
It
line.
gives them something to talk about. It gives them
Right
something
now
to
they're the popular
blame
person at
things
work
on.
or
Yeah.
school or whatever it is, or in
Yep.
their family because they're the haunted ones, or
Right.
go to so and so's house because they're haunted. Ooh, let's go hang out there. Or, it's the talk of the neighborhood or whatever. Like they like the attention. And I mean,
Mhm.
some people are going to say, "How dare I say that?" But I'm saying, well, we've dealt with it, so I can say it all I want.
Yeah.
But I wonder too if it's some people with the sleep paralysis. I know it sounds weird, but the ones that not, and again, not everybody, we're not putting everybody into one
Nope.
box, but I wonder how many people, because of like maybe the drama in their own lives, or maybe they want a little bit of the drama, do tend to see more of, the demonic type of, the siren sitting on their chest, sucking their life force out,
Right.
or whatever it is, right? Like
Yep.
my son admits to seeing like dark shapes. Absolutely. He was like, yeah, like I could see like dark shapes, but he goes, I knew it was just my brain. Like I knew that I just knew what it was like, and I mean, this isn't a 10 or 11-year-old who's saying this. So,
Mhm.
enough common sense in his head, right? My daughter could hear, the talking, but she also was aware of the fact that this is sleep paralysis. This is not, she was a little concerned at first about one of them where she thought it might have been an intruder, but then she was able to figure out it wasn't an intruder. But
Mhm.
there's so many people out there, and especially because sleep paralysis, like, we have had the information about it for quite a while. You know what I mean? To be honest, like
Right.
we really have. It's not a new thing, right? But it does make me wonder if some people just see things because of the fact that they like the attention, or there's a little bit of drama that's going on, you
I
know.
definitely think that's I know that there's people like that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
There's people who thrive on drama.
Yeah.
And they like to tell a story. They like to be the center of attention for sure. You
Yeah.
know, I think there's also people out there that are trying to who maybe don't take the time to research it, but they're still trying to rationalize in their mind or come up with a reason for what had happened, and because the accounts that you read, I mean, yeah, people, I mean, it's a scary experience for the people that are really having them. It's a scary
Mhm.
deal. And like you said, people are they're seeing the old hag, or they're seeing these shadow people, they're seeing
Mhm.
some sort of demon.
Yeah.
It's a very real experience,
Yeah.
right? That's they're seeing it. It's happening. Um, and you're everything catches up, and now you can move, and it's not something that you forget. You remember every detail about it. So in people's minds, I can see it's super easy to jump to the conclusion like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
this I'm haunted, or there's a demon in my home, or something, because this is
Right.
what they experience. Um, and quite honestly, it's a lot more fun to say that than, oh, I've got a sleep disorder.
Right?
So and that's kind of the hard part about, what we do as investigators, because there are people who, and like you said, it's almost like they want to be haunted,
Mhm.
because they get really angry when we tell them that, well, it's not paranormal. It's like, we're not discounting that. I'm not saying you didn't experience something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you experienced something, but what you experienced has a logical, scientific reason
Right.
for what happened. It's not paranormal.
Yeah.
It is just it's a sleep disorder. Plain and simple. It's an abnormal sleep disorder. So
And there's so many people that don't wanna hear that. They just don't want, they do
it's
not
nowhere near
want.
as exciting. It's nowhere near as exciting. It doesn't create the drama. You're not
Yeah.
going to have Zach Baggins at your house tomorrow. Well,
Yeah.
he could probably make it haunted, I'm sure. But the oh yeah, demon. Yeah, it's a demon. I'm sorry, Zach, if you're watching, I love you. The,
Right.
so just yeah, it's not, and even if we were to tell you, yeah, your sleep paralysis again isn't paranormal, you still could have a haunted house.
Yeah.
That's super possible. So
Right, yeah, because the 2 things absolutely don't need to be correlated. Do
mm-mm.
you think that people who have other, like, I know we talked about the sleep apnea and narcolepsy, um, but what about, I wonder if people that, like, sleepwalk, I wonder if they're more prone to it, or, um, that I don't know.
So yeah, so sleepwalking, it falls under those parasomnia disorders, right?
Right, right.
And it is, yes. The answer is yes. They do. There is a higher likelihood that someone who sleepwalks or has one of these other parasomnia disorders will have sleep paralysis as well. sleepwalking is an interesting one.
Hmm.
I had a daughter that would do it. I actually, two daughters actually that did it. Now that I think about it, and it's super bizarre to watch because they're moving around. They're just doing
Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
abnormal things. They're just doing things. You're just like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And they might look at you, but there's like nobody's
Nothing.
home,
Yeah.
and people like will fold clothes while there's
Mhm.
sleep. I wonder if I can get my wife to sleepwalk. Hmm.
Clean the house and
Yeah,
do all
that'd be
kinds
good.
of
Oh, how'd those dishes get done? Oh, honey, I did those last night for you while
yeah,
you were sleeping.
right. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
they don't
okay.
the sleepwalking, they have no clue. They have no
No,
idea
no.
at all.
I remember, oh my gosh, my oldest daughter, this isn't the one who suffers, who had the sleep paralysis. This is my oldest daughter. She was mid-teens, I would say. She was 13, 14, something like that. And I remember one night, I'm in bed, I'm fast asleep, and I wake up to her standing over me, eyes wide open and just looking at me
Oh
like
boy,
this.
yeah,
Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden she knelt down and she grabbed my hand and just stared at me while she's on one knee holding my hand and just like intently like this. And I was like, shit. Like I don't know what to do. Like, I didn't. And she stood like she sat like that for the like I don't know. I want to say the longest time, but I mean reality is probably like a minute or so, you
yeah,
know. But a minute when you're in that that's a long
yeah.
time,
A-
right?
a-
To have
And
this person that's just like this, and I was like, "Are you okay? What's going on?"
and
And
an
not a
awkward
thing,
minute is like an hour in normal time. So
right? Yeah. And then she gets up and she just walks back to her room and closes the door, and I was like, well, and you actually sit there in your room for like a minute or so, and I'm like, I don't know if I should put a chair in front of my door. Like, like what the hell was that about? Like, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Because you don't like, the next morning she had no
Mhm.
memory of any of it. She couldn't remember. She was in shock actually when I told her. And she did sleepwalk a couple of more times. She would do it when she went over to my parents' house sometimes. She would get up and my mom would find her wandering around or, trying to make something in the kitchen. She wasn't really making anything though. That's the funny part. It's like she would be buttering bread, but without a knife.
Mhm. Yep, and that's it right there.
Without a
Yep,
knife and without butter, just doing the motions of it.
yep,
And in her head, she's making a peanut butter sandwich
yep.
and things like that. And so, she would lead her back to bed and put her back down, and so, yeah, I mean, it's wild to watch. I had a roommate that did that, and, came downstairs and, he was a one of those it's to character. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
I clued in at the fact that he was sleepwalking, funny enough, because of the fact that he wasn't wearing a shirt. He was wearing pants, thank God. But he was not one of those people that would walk around without a shirt or, inappropriately, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, just you'd always have a house coat on,
Yep.
or something like that. And so I was watching TV one night and he comes downstairs and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing up?" No response. Just went straight into the kitchen, started opening and closing the fridge door and opening the cupboards and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he never drank, doesn't do drugs or anything like that. So I was like, "What the hell are you doing?" But not wearing a shirt and that was kind of what clued me and I was like, "Wait a minute. This guy like the fact that he's not wearing a shirt, that clued me into the fact that he was sleepwalking.
Mhm.
Funny enough, because that's not something that he would normally do.
Right.
He would never do that. So,
Yep. And how did you deal with it? Did you just let him go about his business
I
or
just ignored him.
okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
And, more or less, like, kept watch, that he wasn't doing anything stupid, like walking outside or whatever.
Yep.
But he actually just kinda turned around and went back upstairs, and I just let it be.
Perfect. And that's
Yeah.
that's kind of what they talk about is when you have a sleepwalker, if you have known sleepwalkers in the house, lock your doors. because you
Yeah,
don't want them going outside.
I did.
Okay.
I did block my door. I will tell you. I said to my son, I want you to put something in front of your door tonight, and I'm
Mhm.
going to too. Not because of the fact that there was anything, again, not inappropriate or anything like
Right.
that, but I didn't want to take a chance that either of us woke up,
Yeah.
to him being around or
Right.
whatever, right? Because, it kind of brings me back to that episode with my daughter. The last thing, it was hard enough with somebody that I truly, would give my life to and loved completely, than my roommate.
Right.
Because that probably wouldn't go over well, and I probably would have so
Yeah. So, they talk about like, oh, you never wake up a person that's sleepwalking, never wake them up. Well, that's not entirely true. It's not really dangerous to wake them up. What it is that it's more of they have no idea what's going on. For all they
right.
know, they're in bed asleep, and all of a sudden they wake up in the kitchen to you going, "Hey, hey, hey!" I mean, it's going to scare the crap out of
Oh,
them,
sure,
right?
sure.
And
And
so
if
it's
they're
just that
older or
anxiety
have eye
thing.
problems or health problems, that could really,
Exactly. So, and if they're easily jolted or whatever, I mean, a fist might fly, like you said, like and you might get hit or something. It's it can be dangerous, and that's what you do. You just kind of watch them, make sure that they're not doing anything dangerous. You can coax them back
yeah,
to bed, just quietly, maybe put a gentle hand on the shoulder and kind of start turning him and moving him back to bed. Use a soft voice, and that's what we did with my daughters. Is like, hey, come on, let's go back to bed, and we just go back to bed, and they get in bed, and no big deal. Most sleep disorders are that way. The nightmares or night terrors,
yeah.
I mean, my wife has night terrors, and I tell her, because I mean, she'll just freaking all of a sudden just start howling
Wow.
in her sleep, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
good lord, and she has no idea what's going on, and
Yeah.
like, the thing about night terrors, they don't usually last a real long time. I mean, in
Mhm,
younger kids, they can go up to 20 minutes, which is hard.
mhm.
But they say, even for parents, like, as much as you want to wake them up out of the whatever terrible dream they're having, don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just it'll go away.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. You can sit with them, make sure that they don't like thrash around and hit their head on the wall or something, but just let it play out,
Yeah.
and it'll be fine. Now, sleep paralysis, on the other hand, if you wake up and your partner's got their eyes are wide open and they're not moving and they look terrified, yeah, give them a nudge and they'll
Yeah.
wake up and they'll be
Yeah.
able
And
so
and if they're still not moving,
yeah.
then call 911.
And there's yes, yeah, you might start CPR. The
Yeah.
yeah, and there's some other really weird ones. There's ones that, I'm gonna keep this as PG rated as I can, but there's like people that do sexual things in their
Yeah.
sleep too. I mean, they'll start in on their partner in bed, and they won't even have any idea. They'll wake up and she'll be like, man, you were all over me last night.
I go, "Oh, I thought you were
I
Cindy
don't remember
Crawford."
that. So, but there's like, and it's been observed. It's a real sleep
Yeah.
disorder that happens to people. It's super weird, but and
Wow.
that's why it's called because it's weird. Kind of makes me wonder why I'm a paramedic. I'm not really sure how that.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm an abnormal medic. The uh, but yeah, there's a lot of them out there, and I got to be honest. I mean, a lot of them are just creepy to
Yeah.
watch, to observe,
Yeah.
And so we talk about a couple hundred years ago, and not having that scientific knowledge and the education and the information at hand. I can imagine what goes through people's minds when they see this stuff. It's just like I mean, oh man, scary.
No, I remember, after my second daughter was born, she was in a little cradle right beside our bed, and I remember waking up to uh, my husband at the time, ex now, trying to pull the glass covering off of the light fixture on the ceiling, trying to pull it off. "I need my hat." He kept saying, "I need my hat." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, that hat is going to end up like all over our bedroom in little glass slivers. When those things
Yeah,
are
yeah,
light
I know
through,
exactly what you're talking
like
about. Yeah.
you're going to have glass shards like for the
You'll
next
be
20
wearing
years."
shoes to bed forever. So
Okay. I was like, oh my God, you got to stop. Like, I thought, oh my God, the baby's right beside, right beside the crib too, right? Or right beside the bed. I was like, oh my God. Finally, got him down. But I tell you, I had a fight with him for that. But he was fast asleep. And
Yep.
even then, like, even after arguing with him and fighting with, like, you stop, you got to lie down, you got to lie down. There was no waking up from that. It was weird. It was weird. Like, I had a really,
Wow.
I struggled like to get him to lie down and let go of he was dead determined that he was going to wear this hat. So I was like,
I need your help. Oh,
dead determined.
that's
Yeah, it was
interesting. You
crazy.
couldn't wake him up out of that though, too. That's kind of weird. So
No, I could not.
I
No,
never
and that
even
was the thing.
considered
I
that.
could not
Not
wake
being
him
able to
up
wake
to
somebody
that.
up.
And the
Oh.
next day didn't remember a damn thing about it. So
How convenient. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, so Kathy, I don't know if you have any ideas on prevention, on how we might be able to
You
prevent
know,
people
I
at
don't
paralysis.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like, if it is caused by something like narcolepsy, I mean, that obviously, needs, medical intervention, I'm
Correct.
assuming, right?
Mhm.
But the anxiety itself, I mean, maybe a melatonin, something that calms you down at
Mhm.
the end of the day. Like, I know for myself, I mean, I don't even want to publicly admit this, but I mean, I have to take like a sleeping pill and a melatonin sometimes because I'll get massive anxiety attacks,
Mhm.
especially just before bed. And they're not, you would never know that I'm going through one. Like, you would never look at me and go, oh, she's having an anxiety. Like, it's so silent and internal,
Yeah.
but that will calm me down. And I mean, basically, because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't smoke weed, like, I don't, I don't use anything external, I guess, in that extent, to dissipate, any anxiety or whatever. So so for me, like, I do find like the melatonin seems to really work for
Mhm.
sure. Like, it gets
Nice.
you into this place of, calm. And then sometimes even that sleepy time tea, I'll combine the two of them together. And you know,
Yeah.
I think I read, to stay off your cell phone before
Mhm.
bed, like an hour before bed. But I mean, let's be real. How easy is that to do? I mean, we can say that we can do that. We can take our phones away from our 2-year-old, but are we really going, or take away the tablets from our kids? But are we really, like, I mean, we always, of course, we're checking our phones before we go to bed. We're setting our alarms. We're scrolling social media, unless, I mean, y- unless it's, the age where, unless you're the type of person that likes to read before you fall asleep, chances are you're probably going to be an electronic device.
Mhm. Yep. And yeah, you hit the ones that I was pretty well aware of. Is they talk about having good what do they call it? Good sleep time hygiene is what they call it.
Right.
Number one, you want to make sure you have a comfortable place to sleep. That's the big thing. So
Yeah.
there's I look to save money in every aspect that I can, just like you, Kathy. I mean, I got 9 people living under my roof, including myself. Uh, you know, money's pretty tight.
Yeah.
So, but there's 2 things that I never skimp on: my shoes and my
Yeah.
mattress.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I have a good you have to have a good pair of comfortable shoes to get through your day, and you need a good place to sleep. So don't skimp on your mattress. And I'm not saying you got to go buy a name brand mattress, okay?
Right. Yeah.
But don't get some $15 thing that's just gonna, yeah, go find a good mattress that you can afford, but don't don't get the cheapest ones that you can find.
I
uh
think
yeah, go ahead.
I think too is that if you do have an episode of sleep paralysis, try to look back at your night, that night, and see, was there anything that you changed, anything that you did different? Was there anything that you could have, included into that bedtime routine Was it a show? Except, what? Was it mostly a really anxiety ridden day? Whatever it was, and take a look at that and go, okay, these are what I'm going to avoid moving forward. And I mean, it's always a process of elimination, right? So, it could have been, maybe you watched a show, maybe there was an unexpected bill, maybe there was this, maybe there was that, maybe your day was just, maybe something happened, at your work that you weren't expecting, or, whatever it is, like take a look and go, okay, these are things that I'm aware of, and let's try to eliminate that from my bedtime routine. Or
Yeah. And there you hit it on the head. That was another thing, is have a routine, have a bedtime
yeah,
routine,
yeah,
and maybe it's something, it's like, okay, I get the dishes done, put away, just whatever it is, I go brush my teeth,
yeah,
I set my alarm on my phone, I go to sleep,
yeah.
and do the same thing every time. There's a big difference between setting your alarm on your phone and then playing Sudoku, or scrolling
Yeah,
through social media, because that's going to keep your brain amped up
active.
and
Yeah,
active, right?
yeah,
So they do say limit the distractions. One, make sure you got a dark place to sleep.
mhm,
If you sleep like you're in a downtown apartment or whatever, make sure you have blackout curtains or
yeah.
something that you can put over your windows. So
Or noise canceling too,
yes,
right? Like,
my wife's
you know
got a
yeah.
it's like a headband uh, that has earbuds somehow in
Oh,
them, but they don't go in your ear, just cover your ears. So
yeah.
she can listen to, I think she listens to audiobooks to sleep or something.
Right, right.
And that helps her out quite a bit. And it's super comfortable. It doesn't affect your sleep like, wearing over the ear headphones or earbuds.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
The
That's
other
a
one,
really good idea. I listen to meditation music when I sleep, and so, that's what I go to sleep with, and it really does help, you know.
right. The You kind of talked about it too, is like you kind of have to curb any substance use,
Yeah.
alcohol and caffeine in particular. And alcohol, I know everyone's, oh, come on. Because when does everybody drink? Drink at night, right? Unless you're
Yeah,
like, you know, unless you have a problem and you're drinking at 8 a.m. But you don't do that. You need to kind of curb that
yeah.
alcohol use. At least, I mean, especially like if you're just going to go out on like an all night binger and think this is not going to be good for you. So they talk about that as well. Now, if you don't have sleep paralysis, then you can probably ignore 90% of the
Right? Do what you want. Do what you want.
if you're experiencing these problems, maybe try some of these things and they will help you. They also, say if you're having multiple episodes like this, talk to your doctor. Go to a
Yeah.
doctor and talk to them about it, because maybe you do have uncontrolled anxiety. They can help with that. There's medications out there that, and it's not a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean, not like downplaying, but it shouldn't be something anybody needs to be embarrassed about.
And I don't think it is anymore. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the thing, is I think that, there, I mean, if we look at the statistics of people who have like anxiety, ADHD, depression, even on the spectrum
right.
disorders nowadays, I mean, we're looking at so many,
Yeah.
so many,
Yep.
right? So,
Exactly. So
it's very rare to run into somebody nowadays that doesn't have all of that going on, or something going on, right? So,
and the other thing too is like, if you're not feeling anxious or whatever and you're having these things, go in for a sleep study or talk to your spouse about, hey, would you just like, if you get up in the middle of the night, would you just kind of pay attention to how I'm breathing? If you're
yeah.
if you're a snorer, if you get a lot of snoring, in my case, I snore a little bit, but what I do is I start to breathe like super shallow. Like
Oh, okay.
I'm just a very shallow breather when I sleep. And so my oxygen saturations, I guess, dip pretty good. Just I don't hold my breath. I just very, very shallow breathing. So, for a long time, I wore a CPAP machine, and pretty soon I couldn't stand it anymore. So I stopped wearing it. But, my wife never complains about my snoring. I've been trying to get her in for a sleep study because she's got to the point now where she's starting to snore pretty good. So doesn't believe me. So one of these nights, I'm just gonna record her doing it. So it's like, this is what I listen
She
to.
probably doesn't believe that she's doing it. It's actually, speaking of sleeping, it's really funny because I talk in my sleep.
Mhm.
Like I will have a full blown fucking conversation apparently like most of the night. So and my son will be like, I literally just hear you babbling away. Like, out,
funny.
he goes, if I go outside of my room or whatever, because he's a teenager, right? So he's up all fucking night. Excuse my language, but and he'll be like, yeah, you're just blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay.
I'm surprised you haven't set up a recorder to find out what you're talking about. That'd be super interesting.
I don't think I'm
And
really. I
weird.
don't know if I'm interested in knowing what I talk.
What or who you're talking to? That's what I'm
Right?
curious about. Who you're having this conversation with. So
Probably most of it is just complete nonsense, I would think, anyway. But he goes, yeah. Sometimes I'll walk by and I just hear you blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, whatever. It's funny. Oh well, what do you do? What do you do? It is what it is.
it is what it is. We have no control of what we do when we sleep, apparently. So
exactly. So I guess I just wanted to thank everybody for being here this week and listening and joining in and everything. So I think we're going to be here next Sunday too, right?
should be.
Hopefully Pete and Lynda will be with us. And again, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Pleasant dreams.
Pleasant dreams. Sleep well.